Hello everyone, Brett here, and in today's video we are going to be talking about how to make your own fingerstyle guitar arrangement. We are going to choose the song When I Come Around from Green Day. And what I'm going to show you is the process that you can use to arrange one of these songs for fingerstyle guitar that matches kind of the style of music that you want to do. So the style of music for Green Day is kind of grunge, kind of punk, and the way I'm going to arrange the guitar song is going to try to reflect that. Some arrangements I see for fingerstyle guitar sound a little bit too nice or a little bit too classical for the style of music that it is. So I chose this song to give you an example of a song that you can use that's kind of dirty sounding, I guess, and it will let us use alternate tunings and different fingerings, and we're going to jump into that. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get the chords for your song. And a trick that you can use for one of these popular songs, the ones that are really, really well known, like Green Day, is you can go on to Google image search. You can search by large images. You will find one of these, which is like the first page of the score. And if you want, you can download the whole thing. This normally will get you started. And if you're not so good at doing the melody, which I'm going to explain a little bit later on, I can take the melody and I can learn it by ear. But if you can't learn the melody by ear, then you're going to have to maybe download the whole thing. It's like 2 pages and it costs you a couple of bucks. So you can do that. I'm just going to work with the first page because it's free. It's the image preview that I get on Google, and I'm going to run with that. So it starts off first with 3 or 4 different power chords, and there are 2 other chords that I need to learn in the chorus. I'm going to explain that a little bit later on, but first we're just going to look at the intro of the song. The intro being one of the main parts of the song. And in the intro, you can see there's the G chord, the D chord, the E chord, and the C chord. So I'm going to start by playing the riff. Now it's these power chords. So the one problem is that if I play along with the recording, I'm not going to do that because if I have the recording going, it'll give me a copyright strike. But if I play along with the recording and I don't pay attention to what it says up here into the top left where it's a half step down, it's going to sound totally off. So first, if I want my arrangement to sound exactly like it is, I have to already start by tuning the guitar a half step down. And also the other thing is when I've already gotten to tune a half step down, it's not going to change the fingering pattern of what I did. If you notice, the first chord is going to be the G chord, and it's going to have a bass note of G. The next chord is going to be the D power chord, which is going to be up here, or it can be played like this, which is going to be the 4th string open, or I have to block the 5th string. Either way, if I'm going to play the D power chord kind of rough, I might hit some of the other strings. So it's not super ideal when you're doing an arrangement to have only 4 string chords. So be aware, I'm going to consider this D power chord as having to have a chord that's going to have to cover 5 strings, and I'm going to have to finger it. Okay, our next chord that we have is E. E power chord is all the way up here if I want to follow the contour of the melody. Now it's G, D, E, and then falls back to C. If I do G, D, E, C, it sounds good, it sounds okay, but it doesn't exactly follow the contour of how the guitarist plays it at the beginning of the song in his intro riff. We clearly hear in the intro riff an E up here down to C, but you can replace in your arrangement, you can go G, D, E, C if you like. It's just not something that I want to do in this arrangement, and I'm going to try to find a different way around that. So far we have one chord that requires a bass note, the G chord, one chord that may or may not require the bass note, one chord that may or may not require the bass note, and then the last chord that we have is the C power chord, which definitely requires us to place a finger on the guitar to get this bass note. Okay, so why am I talking about putting fingers on the guitar to get the bass note? The reason why I am kind of harping on this at the very outset is the fact that in the time that you want to use alternate tunings to replace your bass notes, this is really the time to do it because it frees up the rest of the hand to do the melody notes. And sometimes not only are you going to have to do melody notes, but you're also going to have to do like other riffs. For instance, there's a guitar solo that happens in this song a little bit later on. And then you're going to want to have your hands free to be able to do the guitar solo. Now the guitar solo is very straightforward in this, and this arrangement you could probably make do by not having any alternate tunings. But what we're going to do is we're going to lower our guitars not only from standard tuning to a lower tuning, half step down, but we're also going to lower the strings, the sixth and the fifth string, to a lower note so we can clear out all of those bass notes and make us have more open strings for our bass notes. Okay, so the one that we can use is, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the G chord, have the A string 2 down to G, and we're going to get rid of the C chord, have the sixth string 2 down to C. So then we're going to have C, G, and D, which will also be open. But with the C chord, the C string 2, the E string 2 down to C, we'll also be able to simplify the our D chord. I'll show you that in a second. So we have G and then we have C, which are going to be super simple. D is going to be very simple as well. The only one that's going to be complicated now is the E chord. I'll show you the E chord is going to be a little bit messed up. The finger pattern for the E chord is going to be kind of messed up. So there's no like perfect fingering when you're going to be doing drop tunings, especially when you have at least 4. There's also an A chord that happens a little bit later on. Like I said, we're just focusing strictly on the introduction. But there is also an A chord that happens a little bit later on that requires you to bar at a certain point because, again, of our alternate tuning. A chord would simply be with the fifth string open, but because it only happens in the chorus at one spot, I'm going to replace that with a bar. And you'll see how that happens a little bit later on. So we're going to start off first by tuning our low E string down to C, which another half step down becomes B. If you don't know the names of your notes, I do cover it in my program Play Fingerstyle Guitar Now. And if you want another video about how to identify notes which are on the guitar neck, you can just let me know. First thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the E string down to low B. So the way you can do this, if with a harmonic, if you like, you play the second string open, which sounds B, and then you can play the harmonic, which is at the sixth. Well, it's on the sixth string at the fifth fret, and it's going to sound a different note until you tune it down to your low B. I don't normally use harmonics to tune, but if you like to, you start by tuning with the different harmonics which are going to produce the note of the open string that you want. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but that sounds pretty good. Okay, now our sixth string is tuned down to B. Now this string, it comes a little bit tricky because we're also doing half step down tunings. I need to tune this string down to F sharp. So minor third down. It's also going to sound a fifth from my sixth string open. Okay, then I'm going to tune the D string. Everything here is just going to go down a half step. Okay, so now I'm a half step down for these treble strings, and then these strings are a half step plus the extra notes. So we have B, then we have F sharp, which is going to sound like C, and then G. And then we have this a half step down, which should sound like C sharp. Great. Good, and then the fifth and the third strings will sound an octave apart. And then it's the rest of the strings, B flat and E flat, we haven't changed. Okay, so now I'm ready to pull out different sections or different parts which are in the song. Before I do that, I'm going to practice the opening riff now with my new tuning, so I get used to what the chord patterns are going to look like. Okay, so the first the first chord is going to have a lot of open strings. The G chord, that was on purpose. Don't touch the sixth string, so you can mute it with your thumb, or just make sure that you don't touch it. The riff opening, like the rhythm for the riff opening, is actually written down in the part that I downloaded. Down, 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 up. So that's straightforward. I don't have to calculate that. If you didn't have the score for this, you would have to figure out what the rhythm was for the intro. Okay, so I have G, 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 G. Okay, so I'm going to do my G chord, which is basically just placing my second finger on the second string at the 3rd fret. Okay, next I need my D chord. And the D chord I am just going to do, because I haven't really changed the fingering of the D chord, but I can also do a D like this, which means that I'm going to place my first finger, or even my thumb if I want, on my 6th string at the 2nd fret. And then at the same time I have to make sure I block the 5th string, because I don't want that note sounding. So I can have, what I'd rather do is my D chord like this, and so I have 2 fingers which are in the 2nd fret, on the 6th and on the 3rd string, and then 1 finger which is on the 2nd string at the 3rd fret. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now for the E chord, this is where it becomes a little bit dumb. The E chord, I need to have this fingering pattern. It's not very nice, but it's going to be my 2nd finger on the 6th string at the 4th fret. My 3rd finger is going to be on the 3rd string at the 4th fret. My pinky finger over on the 2nd string at the 5th fret. And then I've got my index finger on the 4th string at the 2nd fret. And this is our power chord for E. And like, I wish I could say it was a nicer, it's not the hardest thing to do in the world, but it's what we have to do in order to take advantage of our open fingering. And then the last is going to be the bottom of a C chord. Now, as you can see, the only part that, now I can have like my rising line, what I was talking about at the beginning, where you want to kind of respect the dun dun, D, D, C. So I can respect it going up, and then down again, if that makes sense. Our bass is going to be G, E, C. And the C chord is going to be an open chord, except all I need to do is do the bottom part of a regular C chord. If I played C, it would sound like C7 because I've tuned the 5th string, so I leave both those open. And now I have a bottom part of a C chord, which I'm going to be using. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do, we're still on the introduction here, we haven't started the rest of the song. The next I'm going to do is try to pull the bass line out of the introduction part, because there's a bass riff that plays. I've practiced the chords. If not, like, get used to G, D, E, C. Again, because there's some weird chord shapes, I've practiced it a little bit before recording, so I'm used to it. You will have to practice getting used to the chord shapes. If you absolutely cannot find the chords for the song, then you're going to have to just actually play in standard tuning, play the chords by ear. And like I said, like you saw me here, this chord shape, because it's an alternate tuning, I just made that up. I didn't know it was going to turn out like this. I had to fiddle around with it and find the chord shape that worked for the bass line of this song. And it's just one of those things you do if you're going to do with an alternate tuning. The other thing that you might have noticed is when I'm playing this low C chord, it sounds, because this is actually tuned to low B, and these is tuned down to F sharp. It's tuned down quite a bit, and I'm using really quite light strings, and they hit the frets of my guitar, and it sounds a little bit metallic, and I don't mind that as much because this is kind of like a grunge song. Like, the guitar is played with distortion, and I would not use this if it were a song that didn't have the style that I'm doing, like punk. I would not tune down so low. Or you could use like heavier gauge strings, or just pluck them, for instance. So you would not have any rough sounding or any like sounds of the strings hitting the frets. And you also want to kind of be careful when you're doing your arrangement, like I said at the beginning, to make sure that your arrangement actually fits the style of music that you're doing. So I'm going to leave that, and I kind of like it this way, that the sound that it makes, that's pretty rough. And you make sure that you don't use either weird alternate tunings or super low tunings if you're doing a song that doesn't have this sort of grunge or punk atmosphere. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is pull out the bass part. Now I had to transcribe the bass part, I couldn't find it. And the bass part, there's going to be some parts that we aren't going to be able to use while we're playing the chords at the same time. So first I'm going to practice the bass. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Now I'm going to try to integrate that bass part into the riff that I just played, which is, if you remember, it was this. The C chord. Okay, so I need to, the bass comes in at the second time that I play that. So as I'm playing this D chord, the thing I left out is this. Because it's all the way up here. If you can find a way to integrate that into your introduction or into the D chord, then by all means do it. I couldn't find a way to do it when I was practicing to integrate this part up here. So I had to leave it out, and I don't think it sounds like super bad because I left it out, but you'll have to try and see. Unfortunately, you can't put everything in your guitar part. You have to drop some things if it doesn't work. Okay, so we have, after we play our C chord, we have the introduction to the bass part, which kicks in. And then so I added da 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 da, and then da da. That part there, I added that in from the bass line, and that's going to form the basis of our introduction, and then also the interlude part, which is the same as the introduction. Okay, so you're going to practice that. Get the introduction and get all the parts from the introduction in. You want the introduction to sound as complete as you can, because after we're going to be adding in the melody. So the melody part is already written out for me in my score. I have melody and I have some indication of how to play it. I have the bass notes, which I'm going to add, and then if you don't know how to read melody, that's written down like this on the treble clef, let me know. I might make a video about it. But the other thing you can do is try to play around on your guitar and try to find what the notes are. Or another thing that you can do, but I've never tried doing it because I already know how to read music, is you can try inputting the notes into software, and it will spit out the tab for you. And the tab's not going to be perfect because there are going to be some notes that you can play elsewhere on the guitar, and there's some notes which I'm going to switch where they would be. And like, for instance, I'll show you at the very end of the chorus, I play, instead of playing open strings, I like to add in some slides. But let me know if this actually, I'm not even sure if it works, but it would be like, say you would find the first note D, and then you would input it into the software, and then it would spit out like fourth string open. And I'm not sure if it's probably time consuming to do, but it would be a way for you to do it. Okay, now I'm going to start off by playing the melody just by reading off it. So I have 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1. And then more or less. Okay. Now like I said, these are unison and these are unison. What I want to try to do is the most as possible use some open strings, but I showed you that you can play the melody also using different fingers. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to I've got the bass notes written, so I'm going to play just the bass note of every single chord with the melody that happens on that beat. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Oops, this is going to be E. Should be E again. Okay, so here I have my first big stretch. I can decide if I'm going to do it like this or like this. I'm going to look at the full chord. The full chord is like this. So I'm going to play it like this. 6th, 4th, and 3rd strings. Great. All right. So the other thing that you notice is this melody is easily played in first position, meaning that I can use lots of open strings and I don't barely need to go past the 3rd fret. Sometimes I have to go into the 5th fret. I think for the solo, it's very, very, very nice to arrange these sort of songs which are easily played in first position. The part that the melodies that get tricky to arrange are the ones that are like between this register here, where you have to play some melody notes on the 4th string into the 2nd string, and there's no melody notes which are on the 1st string. In that case, you may have to transpose the melody up 1 octave, and then in that case, you're playing up in the higher register. So I'm not sure why. I mean, the song that I came across when I come around is the song that you don't have to transpose any of the melody bits, and so you can. Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't covered it in this arrangement. Any sort of transpositions that you need to do. It's just the way it is. This is quite a nice melody to have to arrange. Okay, now some of the melody is missing from the next half of the it is conveniently cut off here. There's 2 more measures of the melody which I had to transcribe myself, which are very similar to the 2 measures here, which finish off the first half of the verse. And then the other part that I had to transcribe from the song was the chorus. And the chorus is only really 4 measures. And then the other part that I had to transpose and transcribe was the interlude, which is the guitar part. So now we can start to look and see the whole song as the different sections of a song. Once you've worked on your introduction, and like I said, there's parts that you're going to either have to transcribe by ear or figure out what they are on your guitar. There's no way, unless you buy like a songbook, that you're going to be able to find all the different parts of the song already laid out for you perfectly well. Okay, so we've done the introduction, and then we've done the verse, and then we look ahead to the chorus, and then we can see that in the chorus I have an A chord to do, which I'm going to do as a bar like this. And then the rhythm, also the riff, slightly changes at the chorus. And then I also have C, which is luckily easy enough to do in the chorus part. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. We actually should probably finish the verse. So in the verse, what I did so far, if you've been following along, is that we've done the bass notes for the chords which are in the verse, and we've also done the melody for the notes that are in the verse. Okay, so what I want to do is mix in the riff with the melody that I'm playing. Obviously, I can't play through the riff. I'm not going to be singing the melody. I need to add the melody, which I've played, along with some of the bass notes. And the way I do it is every time that I'm not playing the melody, I'm going to play the riff. Okay, so I'm going to have the riff is this rhythm, and I'm going to be strumming that rhythm in the breaks where I'm not playing the melody. If you can't strum the rhythm, the second best thing that you can do is just play the bass notes with the thumb. Da 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 da, like that. And I recommend strumming this part because, like I said, the song is kind of grunge. It's kind of rough sounding, and so it kind of sounds good when you strum along the riff along with the melody that you're playing. Okay, so it gives us like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's slow speed. The E chord is going to be. E chord is. Oh man. Okay, so there's parts there where I messed up, especially with the E chord. The E chord is the trickiest part, and because it's, like I said, it's a made-up chord shape, I'm not used to doing it that way. Let's try that again. So, oh yeah, the other thing that I did was I added percussion on the 2nd and on the 4th beats. So that's a common thing that a lot of fingerstyle arrangements do. You can leave out the percussion, but I just added in kind of because as you do the percussion, you can slap across the open strings and get them to sound as well. So, or just. And so on, you would practice that and make it sound more refined. So that's kind of what the verse sounds like, very roughly sketched out. The next part that you're going to do is we're going to get into the chorus. Okay, so the chorus melody is and the chorus riff is C. Simply straight down strokes. So what I've tried to do is you always want the melody to ring out even though you're doing lots of noise in the bass. So you never want the bass to rub or hide what the melody is doing. So as you're doing these downstrokes, if that's what you choose to do, you can also do like blocked chords, which is satisfactory as well. So what I did is I took the eighth notes and just made it like a pulsating bass in my thumb line. So it works perfectly fine. The other thing you can do is, like I said, do strumming on the downstrokes, and that way I'm going to angle my finger in so it kind of like knocks against those higher strings. Not sure I like it as much with the strumming. Okay, you might have to use a combination of strumming like the downstrokes I did and a pulsating bass line at the thumb at that point. I haven't figured it out. It would be, I'm kind of aiming towards using both of those, either a strumming part or a pulsating thumb part. Okay. Now the last part, when you're finished doing, what was it? This part? This C chord? These 4/8 notes? Then this is where it goes, where there's a part of the vocal line where it's where I come around. And at these parts at the end of phrases, you, instead of just playing the notes, you can add in like playing them at a different part on the guitar, which I do here. And the reason why you want to do that is obviously it lets me slide into it. And it also lets me do vibrato, which is pulling the string up and down like this, a wide vibrato, or just swinging from side to side. Okay, so once... That only happens at the end. But okay, so once I do that, then I get put into the interlude, which is the part which is going to be exactly like the introduction. So the nice part is I don't have to learn a new section of the song. I can just do what I was doing for the introduction. So... The last section of the song that we need to look at is the solo. And the solo first, obviously what you're going to do is you're going to play the solo without any of the bass parts. Very simple solo. And then the 16th notes, I should say, which are repeated 16th notes. If you don't want to, which doesn't sound so good, so in what I should explain what I'm doing is I'm plucking the strings rapidly in succession. If you don't want to do that, then you can just strum down, up, And it's a way that I normally do it because I'm not so good at very fast plucking repeated strings. Some people are maniacs at this, like really, really good at it, and I'm not really good at it at all. I hate doing that. So again, the choice of this song allows us to do just down ups strumming when we have those repeated notes. So that's what I'm going to do this part. Okay, so my solo. And then we go back into the chorus. So as you can see, I want to respect the character of the solo as much as I can. There's open string notes that ring out. I want to respect that as much as I can in my arrangement. So I keep that in mind. Okay, so now all we need to do is add in the riff notes or the chords, the bass notes that we do at the same time as that solo melody. So we have G, and then we have D. A bit of a stretch here. Should be able to do it though. 6th string, 2nd fret, and then I'm on the 5th fret here on the 1st string. Okay, and then our E chord. This is E minor 7, what it's going to sound like. And I've got a partial bar on the 1st and 2nd strings at the 3rd fret, and then I've got my finger up here covering the note which is on the 6th string at the 4th fret. Okay, and then the C is going to be super simple. If I want to do I'm trying to think if I should do like all 6 strings when I'm doing that. I'll see what it sounds like. What I'm just basically doing now is just figuring out what the bass notes are that go with the solo. Again, because this is a different section of the song, sometimes you have a bridge of the song. This is a different section of the song, so it's new. I'm just looking at it now. Obviously, I mean, I did a little bit of studying before, but I'm trying to figure out how I want to integrate this into my arrangement and the techniques I want to use to play it. Okay, so we have and then okay, so now before I had to slide in, I should have figured this out when I was doing the bass and the melody at the same time. I have to slide into, so I need to figure out how I can slide in to the melody and slide into the bass at the same time. And the way I had to do that was to change the finger which I was using to play this note on the 5th string. The 5th fretted note on the 2nd string and the 4th fretted note on the 3rd string. So I have to do that. Okay, so let's go back and add in our bass notes. That sounds pretty good. I like that. Okay, and then that sounds pretty good. Okay, the last part is how you want to end the song. This simply ends on a C chord. Now, it does end on a power chord, and it sort of fades away when it ends. So when you're going to end on a song that fades away like that, you don't want to obviously like hit the strings too hard because your chord's going to ring and last forever. So you're going to play it, you can pluck it nicely, not too loud, and the bass notes will ring for a very long time. And then if you want to fade it and cut the sound, like you lay your palm across the strings and then it fades out like that, it stops the strings vibrating, and that's how you're going to finish your song when you fade out. Okay, so that's how you arrange a song from scratch really, and even then, like, I'm kind of a lazy arranger. I do as much as I can to try to find shortcuts, in the sense that I look for either arrangements that have already been done if I can get some inspiration from those, or I look for the scores which are already done, like parts of the song which are already written out, the melody and the chords which are in your song. And this is a fairly straightforward song to arrange. Like, I kind of just once I winged it, but I came up with this in a couple hours. And this is what I would recommend you doing starting out. If you're going to start out learning a song, learn one of those 4-chord songs, those pop songs which have melodies, which you can play open strings and without having to go up into the higher register. Like I said, I didn't even touch these higher registers. One thing I wanted to add is, like, this part, the guitar solo, there's probably a way for you to do the whole solo using guitar harmonics. And I didn't do it, but one of the things that you can add as a special effect or something into your arrangement to show off your skills are things like harmonics and other sort of special effects. Slap harmonics, could be anything. I talk a lot more about these special effects in my course, which I call Play Fingerstyle Guitar Now, in my online guitar course. And where I add these special effects kind of as flourishes at the end of the phrase, and the different sort of effects that you can use in fingerstyle guitar. So that's in the course Play Fingerstyle Guitar Now. I'll leave a link in the description which you can get. And that's it. So if you have any questions about arranging for fingerstyle guitar, and if you want me to do a full arrangement of the song and a cover, I'll do it. Let me know. Leave your comments below. Subscribe to the channel if it's not already done. And I will see you in the next video.